The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, TechBytes is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Welcome back to another episode of the TechBytes podcast, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and this week, I'm very excited to have a conversation with Jeff Caplan, the CIO of Hooters of America. So welcome to TechBytes.
Rob, thanks so much. It's great to be here.
So I found out it's funny how introductions go, but I found out that you have an interesting background. But let's start with your professional background. You've been at Hooters. Can we just say Hooters?
We can say Hooters.
Okay, so you've been at Hooters for a couple of years. You replaced Karen Bird, who used to be on the IFBTA board. So this is great. So I feel like we're all family here. But what did you do? What led you to getting in with Hooters?
Yeah, funny how life works. I was principal with a local consulting firm and actually had Hooters as a client for a few months, helping them with strategic planning work. That point in time, Karen retired, and I was asked to sit in to the seat for a bit and help them find a replacement. I had prior CIO experience, so it seemed a natural transition. I'd been doing the job for a few months and looking at replacements and started looking at my day and the work I was doing. I was like, holy smokes, this place is awesome. I mean, I was just having a great time with the management team here and the work that we were doing. And I hadn't spent that much time in restaurant technology, but I truly believe the last few years, there's no better industry to be in if you're a technologist in restaurants. There's just so much stuff going on. And I went to Sal Malelli, the CEO, and I said, I've got a new name for you for the search list. And he said, I was kind of hoping you'd say that. So we worked things out and I came on board.
So you said that you were doing consulting, but it sounds like the consulting that you were doing was not food service industry specific.
No, as a matter of fact, prior to this, the last 5 years, I'd been spent working in payments technology for a major global payments company, had them as a client. And as it turned out, that was just outstanding experience because so much of what we do in restaurants is around payments, and understanding how payments really work and the details behind that has been absolutely essential in this role. It's a critical part of our business, and it was great background for this job.
Well, as I think about it, your timing, if we go ahead and we look at 2 years ago, what we were coming out of as an industry, and certainly, in the line of business that Hooters was in, would have been impacted greatly because of the dining rooms and things. But payments and online ordering and the whole digital piece, really changed. And so you came in at a good time versus people who I have talked to recently that joined like the week before or in the middle of. You actually came in a good time because you're reaping the benefits, not that there are great benefits here, but you're reaping the benefits of what happened to the industry and the digital side of things, which probably you stepped right into a very great opportunity in that.
A tremendous opportunity, Rob. You're spot on. And I very much recognize that. And that's why it became a very easy decision to make the transition. Look, in my last company, I have to tell you, I thought I was going to retire from there. I was like, there's no way I will change jobs until I saw this. And I was like, there's so many cool things going on right now in this technology space. The opportunity to be part of it was simply irresistible. And over the course of the last couple of years with what we've done with the team here, it's turned out to be absolutely the right decision.
Well, listen, I'm not going to make the assumption that everybody knows. All right, wait a minute. I am going to make the assumption that everybody knows what Hooters is, okay? However, if I were to say, and I had written myself some notes on this, I said, this is not like your father's Hooters, okay? So whatever that, however we go with that. But it's not that. So Hooters is a company, I have a feeling that people, our listeners don't necessarily understand how broad, the company really is. So could you just give us a background on that?
Sure, absolutely. And Hooters is celebrating its 41st birthday this year after being started in Clearwater, Florida back in 1983. And from a fairly well-worn building to where we are today has really taken quite the journey. We have 155 corporate-owned stores in the United States. We have another 98 franchise locations domestically, and we also have 60 international locations. And those locations continue to grow. I get asked a lot about Hooters and what the business is like. And at the end of the day, it all starts with great food and great service. I don't care what your brand is and what the concept is, but if you don't have great food and great service, nothing else around it matters. And if you look at what today's guests enjoy in terms of live sports, an exciting environment, fun place to have a meal, as well as the food that we serve. There's a reason why our brand has lasted 41 years and has a great future ahead of it.
So you talked about, the transformation of a company and how you've been around since 1983. Has the customer base, because people have a picture of what Hooters is, they saw it in the movies. I think it was Adam Sandler was in a movie, and, we all know about that one, right? In the chicken wings.
Sure.
But has the customer base changed? Who's the target customer base? Or, because I think people do view Hooters as a very traditional, type of customer base, but it seems like you must be appealing to a whole wide range.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about it, we have boomers, we have Gen X, we have millennial, and now we have Gen Z as 4 different generations of customers, each of whom have different preferences, different priorities, different tastes in food. And what we're doing now is, as we continue to evolve our brand, is making sure that we can appeal to all 4 generations of customers. And it's a challenge, but it's one that we're very much taking on through our marketing initiatives, as well as providing different types of digital options to engage with our guests. And that's a big part of where our automation is right now, is how do we establish digital relationships with our guests that go beyond the traditional advertising and marketing that we've done in order to ensure we have those connections.
Well, maybe what we should do is sort of split the conversation in two, because a lot of companies, you have an interesting role. A lot of companies have actually, including some of your neighbors in the Atlanta area, have changed the title of, Chief Technology Officer or CIO to Chief Digital Officer. And there's a lot of crossover in there because of how you're connecting both with customers and with staff. So how are you seeing those initiatives as they relate? And let's break it into two: how you operate versus how you are showing yourselves and connecting with your customers and guests. So maybe we start with the customer and guest, and then we talk about the innovation and operations.
Yeah, so with the customer and guests, we've had a really significant push on with our loyalty program over the course of the last year. And to revitalize that, we've had a loyalty program traditionally. We've decided to take kind of a different angle and different approach to it that we've had, and really put focus into helping to fuel the growth of that. We're actually going through quite a bit of work on that right now to better integrate it and align it within our business, and also integrate it within our marketing communications. A lot of that goes back to not just our technology stack, but also data. And one of my big priorities within the company is to continue to transition us to be a data-based company. Restaurants in particular, everything you touch has data around it in restaurants. And the more that we can harvest and leverage that data for accurate decision making, the better. And so we're recasting ourselves in that direction to do that. So that's kind of in the, as we look at the guest piece of it, reorganizing ourselves to better capitalize on that data and providing the required automation, insight, and intelligence is a huge focal point of ours right now.
Well, let me just ask you a question about that, because I was just on another program last week where we were talking about data, and we were actually looking backwards, and we were talking about the term big data, and data analytics, of course. And we were lamenting that years ago, people were talking about, gee, we want to capture transaction level data, but what are we going to do with all this stuff when we have it? Now, you came from a payments and a financial background. So the question is, maybe you have a different vision and view of what the proper use or the opportunities of the data is within the restaurant industry that we're not maybe taking advantage of today that we should be.
I think it's going to be a fascinating transition that's going to occur over the course of the next few years within the industry. You certainly have loyalty data, and call those your known guests, the guests that you have information about. You've got their email addresses, phone numbers, things like that they provide with prior permission.
That would be the traditional.
Traditional, yeah. So that's X percentage. And if you look at the brand, it's anywhere from 5 to maybe on the high side, like 15, 20% of your guests you have information about. That leaves your other 80% of your guests. And you don't know today, or most brands don't know, whether they need to replace 80% of their guests every day on a day-by-day basis. They don't know how many are coming back in, et cetera. So for me, the huge opportunity here is to expand those operations to call them your off-net guests. You don't quite know as much about them as you'd like, but there's more and more data sources. You hear about things like credit card tokenization, where you can acquire that data. You hear about other third-party data sources that you can use to integrate. And then once you get those, you can go out there and say, here are the cohorts that are working for me. Let me go out there and make myself visible to similar people in those cohorts and draw them into the business.
But it would seem that you could leverage some of the things that the stadiums and arenas and the sports bars are doing to capture and connect on the mobile devices. Because once you're connected to a mobile device within the unit, there's an awful lot of additional data available.
Yeah, exactly. And there are providers out there in the industry who are have some great offerings in that space to help do that. The question is, which ones are going to give you the biggest chunk of relevant real estate as you evaluate those, and which ones can you most easily operationalize? And so for the providers out there, my message to them is, it's not just saying, hey, we can go out there and give you these swaths of data, but it's which ones can I most easily consume and use and internalize within my operation.
Is that your responsibility, or is that their responsibility to figure out how to use and store it and personalize it? Whose responsibility is that?
It's both. It's both sides. So they need to be able to, come up with, create the data from various transaction types. I need to be able to get that data and put the appropriate context around it for use within my business. And that's why partnership is so key with these companies. It can't just be a transactional basis where you go out there and buy data. It needs to be a very close working relationship with the providers.
Well, let's just take a break for a minute, and then let's just talk about the other side of the coin, which is going to be the infrastructure and the inside, of the four walls and the initiatives you have going on.
With the rapid expansion of technology in the food and beverage industries, finding the right supplier can become overwhelming and complicated. To simplify this process, the IFBTA created Exchange. Exchange is a powerful search tool where users can easily narrow down their technology search and refine results by application type, geography served, department, and more. Browse resources and learn more about the industry's technology suppliers at exchange.ifbta.org. Now, back to the show.
So welcome back. We're with Jeff Caplan, the CIO of Hooters of America, and we're having this conversation about, innovation and technology in a world of Hooters. And we've talked about, sort of the data piece of it and the digital side of it. But what about what happens within the four walls, are there really four walls, right? Because you have pickup, delivery, everything else in there. But, as you're operationally, what are the initiatives and things that you're focused on operationally to improve what you're doing?
Yeah, we have a tremendous amount of work that's going on internally, Rob, to create a better guest experience. So I knew when I took this job that I'd be inheriting a 25-year-old homegrown point of sale system, as well as relatively old store networks and store infrastructure. So we kicked off a modernization program a couple of years ago. We've already done our first phase, which is making sure our networks are where they need to be.
Yeah, you got to have the backbone in place.
You got to have the backbone in place. And when can stores not sell? It's when they're down. And so we need to make sure that our stores were up and running and in good shape there. So that was the first part that we've completed with our network upgrades and a corresponding cyber program as well. For the point of sale system, we took a look at it. We evaluated a number of options and decided to team up with PAR Technologies and implement their Brink point of sale platform, as well as Data Central for restaurant
In the
management
back office.
capabilities. We're long-term Punch customers. We've been on Punch for loyalty for a few years, so we already had the relationship with PAR. And we just finished our Data Central rollout in June of this year, which has been extremely successful. And the goal of that was to make things a lot more efficient for our managers, so that instead of running around trying to handwrite notes or work on disparate spreadsheets, our managers could instead focus on their staff and our guests at the stores.
Right.
So that was our first phase.
Wait,
Our
just
second phase,
wait, hang on one second. So is that only for the corporate 130 corporate stores? Is that only for the corporate stores, or is that something that you also made available across the whole network? And of course, the whole network included international.
Yeah, great question. So as of today, our franchises are on different platforms than we are at corporate, both domestically and internationally. I've got one that is finishing the swing as far as transitioning to Brink, and they were already on Data Central. I've got one or two more that are work in progress. So it is possible we may see a greater change with other franchisees moving over the same platform as ours. But each franchisee, at least today, even with the same platform, they operate it independently. So we are a little different than what you see with some other restaurant brands.
Well, I mean, people always use that word mandated, in there, which, who knows what exactly that means, in this day and age. But, I think the important thing is so if I got this right, I'm following your order here. So you put the backbone in, you did the infrastructure. Now, what's the next thing? By the way, you are like a template example of some conversations I've had with people that I always tell them, start from the back and work your way front. And the last thing you might get to is the point of sale. So you put the backbone infrastructure in place, and then you focused on the back office, and what you were doing there. And so now you're headed for the POS?
And now we're headed for front of house. And there's going to be a couple of different dimensions for that. Certainly there's getting the new point of sale system in, and it's going to take us a little time to do that, work across all the stores. But the implementations have gone great so far. So we're very excited about that. The next thing I want to layer on top of that, or possibly in part with it, is moving to options like pay at the table. Again, putting my payments hat on for that sec. Everybody kind of assumes the payment transaction is easy and it's going to go great. Well, unless you have a pay at the table option, guests may wait a few minutes for the check to come out. And then since we oftentimes have large parties, they may say, oh, by the way, we want to split the check, so you need to rerun the check, etc. We want to kind of put that control in the guest's hands. So we're very keen on pay at the table as being a game changer for our guest experience, as well as greatly improving efficiency within the store.
Are they also doing ordering at the table, self-ordering as well?
Great question. Not yet. And we're going to take a look at it. Originally, when I started this project, Rob, I went in thinking, hey, we're going to do ordering from tablets from the get-go. That's going to be the way it goes. And then once I took a look at it, I said, I think there's probably some other areas where we can get greater efficiency before we focus on that. So our take is, again, very foundational. Get your foundation down, get the basics down, and start to layer on different experiences on the top of it. And it could be, we find that certain solutions like handheld tablets for ordering may be better at the top 20% of our stores than all of our stores, depending on the store volumes that we have and what their AUV is. So we're evaluating that. We'll see where we get to.
You also possibly have the future of bring your own device from the customer side. If they're doing online ordering, there isn't so much of a stretch there to say, if you want to have the choice to do online ordering on your own from the table, but identify the table, of course, that's, another option, which also can tie with pay at the table. Some people were messing around with, tableside kiosks, that had a number of different things in it. So there's really a plethora of different, alternatives and options coming down the pike for how the customer actually participates in it.
Yeah. And one of the things that's fascinating that's shaping up, and I'll even use pay at the table as an example. Do you bring out a physical device to the guest? Do you swipe a QR code? Do they still turn over their card to the server? And what we've been seeing for the companies that seem to be successful with it is all of those options. you need to really be have all of the options available, because at the end of the day, it boils down to what the guest is comfortable with. Keep in mind, as we spoke about before, I've got 4 generations of
I
guests.
was just going to go down that path. So you got it. So we're on the same page. So you have 4 generations. So it's really the user experience that changes, but what's in the backbone needs to be able to accept any of them.
Yep, that's exactly right, and that's where we're headed to with it. So I need to make sure that no matter what options we're providing, any of those 4 generations walks into Hooters and is like, oh yeah, this ties out with the way I want my dining experience to be.
So let's talk about the dining experience. So I was reading some articles and I don't know if you're still doing this, but you had done something with Olo and a virtual food court, which looked very interesting to me. You've gotten some press recently on integrating generative AI, are you looking at non-traditional food service outlets or delivery or places to enjoy Hooters, perhaps not always in the 4 walls?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the new one that we just launched that we're really excited about is licensing our products. So you can now get a subset of our Hooters products in public supermarkets. And I have to tell you, it was a thrill. The very first time I walked into the freezer section and saw a very nice orange color in the freezer case, it was good stuff. So we're taking a look at things like that because, again, we're a brand that has something like 99% unaided brand recognition, among the
Absolutely.
public. And people know Hooters and they think Hooters wings. And we're looking for a lot of different options as far as ways to get those to people. So I work very closely with our chief marketing officer, Bruce Scala. And Bruce is constantly, got creative ideas and potential partnerships underway in a number of different areas, and we've got some exciting things. I think.
Hey, look, I'm surprised I haven't seen you guys in the convenience stores yet. Now you're going to tell me, okay, we can't talk about that, right? But no, listen, I go to NACS every year, the National Association of Convenience Stores, and people always say to me, "What exactly do you see at one of these conventions?" Because they think that trade show is just, they picture convenience stores, right? They don't picture the new ones; they picture the old ones, right? And not like Buc-ee's or somebody like that in Texas. And I look at that and I say, listen, you need to go to this because there's 4 or 5 things. You get pizza, you get chicken, you get beef jerky, you get 4-hour shots and 5-hour shots, and you get hot dogs on rollers, right? And I said, you can have all that you want. However, they're changing their model and they're doing partnerships. And your wings and those products are like perfect for alliances like that in the retail side.
We feel exactly the same way as you do. So I think there's going to be more to come here in terms of our presence at non-traditional locations for us. But you talk about the C-stores. Look at the C-store market now. And I live in Georgia, and about 45 minutes up the road from me is a Buc-ee's. I've got friends who Friday night, I'm like, what'd you do? And it's like, hey, we went up to Buc-ee's for dinner. We drove up to Buc-ee's up I-75. And, 15 years ago, would you think that people are driving to a convenience store for dinner? But
Nope.
It's happening. And it just shows some of the changes in the ways that people are considering dining and considering their dining experience. And that's something that I think everybody in the restaurant industry needs to listen to and consider. And it goes back to what we discussed before. It's all about the guest preferences and what excites them about their dining experience.
But also what we're finding, so there's a couple things that come to mind on this. So on the convenience store side, I was telling somebody, they said, how come you're so excited about convenience stores? I'm like, well, besides the fact that they are now able to do fresh food, and they can use new cooking methods, which I keep asking the guys that do sous vide cooking whether they're able to do chicken, and they're getting there, to be able to do fried chicken by sous vide, which means that you don't have to retrofit, in it. But you take, one company, like you take Shell Oil that has 36,000 convenience store gas stations. And I look at that and I go, a restaurant brand that has 36,000, there's only a few of those out there. But as they start going to EV, vehicles and things, they need to do something with that real estate. And where's that real estate usually located? In places where there might be, restaurants. So the partnership of the two, as an outlet to make a deal with somebody and put Hooters chicken wings in 36,000 stores, you just, well, a lot more than double, in size, out there. But that is another alternative, just like putting them in public supermarkets.
The landscape is really changing quickly in this space, and it's the pace of change is just phenomenal as we look at some of the potential that's out there. And it's another reason why we're so excited about the brand. We've done the initial hard work of brand recognition and brand awareness. That's not the challenge. Challenge
Right.
is with all these different opportunities, which ones make the most sense for
Well,
us
that's true.
and the potential partners.
And people will come
and
to
then
you for
working
that.
towards those. Yep.
And then the technology has to go with that. So, tell me a little bit about some of the innovation that you guys are taking a look at. I mean, we got the infrastructure, we got the backbone, you're doing what you need to do for operations, but what's that next level of, innovation that's out there? Why am I reading about generative AI with you guys? Why am I reading about digital food courts or, whatever it is? Where do you see that all going?
So I think there's incredible opportunities for AI within our business, but I also think that it's going to be a little bit more subtle than what some of the initial use cases may suggest. So, for example, we don't do a lot of voice ordering in our people don't drive up to Hooters and voice order. That's not a priority for us right now. However, if I look at opportunities to apply AI to the order chain within our stores.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an example. It might be a Friday night at one of our stores. You got a packed dining room. You've got orders coming in from Olo for off-prem. How do you go about prioritizing those orders and intelligently deconstructing them within the kitchen so that they're made correctly and they come out at reasonable times for our guests? So if I have a 10 top, everybody gets their order within a minute or two, as opposed to worst case scenario, it goes on for several minutes that guests are getting their dinner orders. How can I ensure that I'm making it per commitment for those off-prem guests? And also, by the way, I'll bring the loyalty piece back in. If I'm an orange level Hooters Hoot Club member, how can I ensure that they're getting their order really quick, like maybe
Right.
even pushing them to the front of the line? That's where I see huge opportunities for AI in our business, is to be able to have that intelligent integration, deconstruction, and then reassembly of work in terms of the presentation to the guest. And we've still got a little time before we'll get there, Rob. I need to, finish off the work I'm doing on the point of sale system in KDS and, make sure that I have the data there to do it. But I absolutely believe that we're going to be into that within the next couple of years.
Well, you've brought up a number of things here. That's why I love having conversations with people and we're going to have to do this in person soon. But I'm thinking about what you just said and how the innovation fits and how you're taking advantage of what's available. You're right. Time is going to tell. If I could tell you over 20 to 30 years, and I'm not that old, but 20 to 30 years, I've known 3 or 4 chains, starting with Seafood Shanty in Philadelphia, and I can't even tell you what year that was. That was in the 90s, trying to do automated kitchen timing with Romanco and Atlanta company at one time,
Mm-hmm.
Canadian Atlanta. Then there was Darden Restaurants. I think it was Bahama Breeze or somebody was trying to do the same thing. And it just occurred, I had not thought about it, but it just occurred to me, by the way, when we hang up, I'm going to go try this online. I'm going to sit there. I would guess you could take your data from a restaurant, especially if you're using kitchen display terminals and you're bumping things off and you're capturing timing. And if you would feed that in with the items that were on there when they were bumped off, it would seem to me that AI could very easily determine the pattern to go ahead and throw orders in the future based upon the mix. Better than programming a system.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And what we're excited about is you'll see those patterns manifest themselves. So sports is a huge part of our offering to our guests. Last time I checked, NFL games start at 1:00 on Sunday. There's a patterns to this that we can leverage, and we can also bring it into the events that our stores have and support. So if you have the local car show, the third Saturday of every month, you should be able to get the intelligence into the system to sort of pre-stage what you need to be offering and have the system control that. Again, we've got some work to cover before we get there. But
but you're putting the groundwork in. You've got the infrastructure so that the work is on the creative side.
Once it has infrastructure and data, it becomes two things. It's on the creative side, and then it's change management within our brand. It's most kitchens don't necessarily work with tons of automation. Some do, but especially as you get closer into table service, they tend to be a little bit more ad hoc. And so it's going to be quite a big change for our business as we move and migrate towards that. But again, we think it's going to be a change that's going to offer incredible benefit for our guests, as well as efficiency within our business.
Well, I can see that we're going to have some continued conversations here, possibly come to Atlanta for the QSR conference in September or FS Tech. But I could see we're doing that. I can also see where your background and has come to drive some really great change and innovation within inside of Hooters. I just had one last question for you. In here, you guys cover obviously a lot of sports, and you've just mentioned the tie-in of that. So how does the triathlons play into that? I mean, do you actually have them up on the screens and, you have them up there for like 17 hours and you start at the beginning of the day and you go to the end?
We have stores that have like 40 some odd TV sets in them. And I remember walking in one of them for the first time. It's like, which one is the Tour de France on? And I just kind of got this look, and it was like, okay, got it. But some organizational change takes a little bit longer than others. So I've got my plate full right now, and I'll save that one for the future.
Okay, and just so people know, so we were sharing some triathlon stories, but he's done over 30, and I've only done 5, so of Ironman. But I would guess that in that conversation that we have at some point over a dinner somewhere, I'm going to learn how much technology you now think is actually in the sports industry, to drive people there. Because I got a strange feeling you didn't give it up, but you're certainly applying that as well.
Looking forward to that discussion.
Well, listen, it's been really great, Jeff, having you join us today, and representing Hooters in their next generation of digital transformation. And it's just been a pleasure, and I do look forward to the next conversation. But thank you for joining us today.
Rob, thanks so much for your time, and come and check out our summer limited time offers where they're still available.
There's the advertisement. There you go. So this podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of technology within the food and beverage industries, providing thought leadership as a single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the Exchange, the all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education certification program. The bottom line, the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share. So thank you for joining Jeff and me today on this episode of TechBytes powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.